Okay, so sometimes I have encounters and conversations through the week that make me go, huh, okay, so what do you want to do with this, God? And I had a conversation with someone this week, and that it was really good. It was awesome. But it was also a good reminder of we need to consistently remind each other why this group exists and what we are here for. And so I want to take today to do that. I just felt led by God that, if one person is asking a question, guaranteed other people have the same thoughts and questions, right? And I'm not going to call anybody out, don't worry, but I just want us to make sure that we are on the same page. Obviously, conversation is a huge part of what we do, right? We start with conversation and we usually end with conversation, right? And this is for the purpose of hearing from each other. The last thing I want is for you to just come sit and listen to me and leave. And the last thing I want is for you to just go, oh, that was so great, Teresa. Yeah, it feels good. Don't get me wrong. But what I want to do is remind us as a community why we're here. And even Nehemiah, when he was encouraging to rebuild the wall, he had to stop halfway through and say, let's recast vision. So I think any healthy organization should recast vision frequently in order to maintain and not stray away from it. Okay. So I'm going to start with just a reminder, our mission statement. And our mission statement is to build a community of believers who are anchored in and actively transformed by the Word of God. This is not accomplished simply by listening to me every single week. It only happens when we are engaged in conversation around the things that we are learning together, right? So with this conversation I had this week, I wanted to assure somebody that I want to hear what you have to say, even if it's different than what I said. Because I am not the end all. I research and I glean from scholars, but there are scholars that differ on what I teach. And that's okay, right? But anytime you put a group of people together, you can have animosity or you can have a safe space, right? So I want to talk about what it looks like that I have gleaned over the years from others of how to create a safe place for conversations, especially discussions where we can offer differing views and different opinions and not be threatened by that. Okay. Anytime you put a group of people together, you have opportunity for laughter, right? You have opportunity for encouragement. You have opportunity for growth, but you also have breeding ground as humans where pride, insecurity, or a bazillion other character flaws can come into play and create a more unsafe or unhealthy place, right? And when you put this many people in a room, you're bound to have differing opinions, different lifestyles, different personalities. And this could potentially lead to tension, or it can culture an environment that propels growth. You have both opportunities, right? But too often, many of us, instead of embracing these rich conversations that fuel growth, what do we usually tend to do? We tend to surround ourselves with people just like us, right? Same stage of life, same opinions, same beliefs. And that makes for a very easy gathering full of fun and laughs and attaboys, right? However, while that is an awesome aspect at Anchored House Church, I want us all to understand that this should also be a safe place for each of us to express our thoughts and our understandings and our beliefs and our learnings regarding the subject at hand. So today, what I want to do is I want to offer just some helpful tools, suggestions that help create this pathway to rich conversation that don't have to end in conflict, so that we know how to handle these conversations and do them well and do them in a biblical and godly manner. And I'm not sharing this, hear my heart. I'm not one of those pastors like, we're doing this wrong, so I'm going to do a sermon about it. No, this is essentially an opportunity to dial up and remind all of us so that everybody is on the same page. And we might do this again in another 3 to 6 months, just so we are recasting vision for why we're here. Okay. So we're not doing it wrong. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page and we do it better moving forward, even better moving forward. Sound good? But also, I want you to understand that these tools, these things that I'm going to talk about today, are an essential pathway to having healthy conversations with everybody in your world. This is not just about here. This is about people in your coworkers, your fellow students, your parents that you're around, your family members. This is a pathway to healthy conversations in all aspects of your life. So this isn't just something for here. This is something that I think we can all use and learn from and take into our everyday relationships outside here. So the first suggestion or tool that I'm going to give you, and again, these are not groundbreaking or shattering, oh my gosh, I never knew that, right, kind of thing. But when you have a pathway, you have to start somewhere and you have to have a foundation in order to get to the place you want to be, where there's healthy, rich conversations, right? So the first foundation you need in any conversation that you're having is acceptance. So when Jesus began his ministry, one of the first things he did was surround himself with 12 guys, but he did not expect perfection right away, did he? We know that from the stories that we see written in the Gospels. And when Jesus calls his disciples, he accepted them right where they were. Did he want them to stay there? No. But he accepted them, right? And we will talk more about that in a minute. But he invited them into his life right where they were. Okay? Romans 15:7 says, accept each other just as Christ has accepted you, so that God will be given the glory. Now, I'm a words girl, so I want to define acceptance, what that means. In human psychology terms, I think I put this on your outline. In human psychology, acceptance is a person's assent to the reality of a situation, recognizing a process or condition, often negative or uncomfortable, without attempting to change it or protest. That's a hard one to do, isn't it? So it's more of I'm going to accept and listen more than I'm going to try to change and challenge, right? So we can't expect a t-ball player to behave like a major league player, right? Not going to happen. As a group, modeling this acceptance of where each member is in their personal faith and journey is so important, as well as in your personal conversations and relationships outside of here. We may have seasoned followers who know more than I do, and I welcome that. And we may have people who are just decided to follow Jesus and they're still trying to figure it out, right? So acceptance means we don't expect of others what we want from them. We accept only what they are capable of being or doing at the moment. Okay? And again, these are not earth-shattering, just a foundation. When people walk into Anchored Church knowing they are accepted for who they are and the pathway of belief that they have journeyed, it is vital for the health of what we do here at Anchored. I almost said East Point. Everyone in this room has a story that has led them to this space, and God has something to offer through each of your stories, okay? So acceptance is the foundation of a healthy environment for growth and change through relationship. Because when a person knows they are accepted, guess what they're more willing to do? Number 2, be authentic. Authenticity. If I'm not accepted, I am not going to be real and raw with anybody. There's a book that I read that lays out a lot of these points. It's called A Place to Belong. And it says this: you don't have to live your life with 2 faces, the one other people see and the one you look at in the mirror. By God's grace, you have another option: to be real, be genuine, be authentic. And acceptance has to be felt before authenticity is ever risked, right? And when you consider how Jesus modeled this with his disciples, you go to the Garden of Gethsemane, he shared with them a part of his heart. He shared with the other 12. here, I'm troubled. But then he took his three most trusted, most closest, most valuable, not valuable in that loved him more, that loved him most, and he shared a little more. The depth of authenticity depends on the depth of acceptance. Okay? He knew that those disciples were going to fail him, even though he was being authentic. He knew that they were going to hurt him and reject him, but he still was willing to reveal his heart to them. So questions I think that we can ponder is, why is it hard for people to be authentic and real and genuine with where they are? And I think some of us do a really good job with, I'm really struggling, right? We can do well with the emotional, but can we be real with our beliefs that may not align with what is being spoken? That's another form of authenticity. Hey, I'm not sure I agree with that. We had this moment, Josh, we did this once when we were talking about the mustard seed and the tree and the differing perspectives, right, of the interpretation of those. It was a good conversation, right? And my question to you personally is, are you comfortable being authentic, or are you comfortable when others are being genuine and authentic? Because those are things we have to dial up within ourselves as well to create this space for it to work, right? Sometimes we become uncomfortable when people are raw and real because we don't know how to respond, or some of us want to fix it. Remember, go back to acceptance, right? When in reality, like I said, all we need to do is listen. But like I said, what about authenticity with beliefs or understandings of scripture that may be different than what have been expressed? I want people in this room to feel confident that they are accepted and that they can authentically share what they have learned. That is absolutely okay, because do you realize that even most expert scholars do not always agree on interpretations of particular scriptures? I am certainly no expert, and I study my heart out for each message each week, but I could be missing something and I could be wrong. And I would hope it's not just an emotional authenticity, that it's an intellectual authenticity that says, but have you thought about this? Or here's what I've learned. Here's what I've been taught. That is part of the discussion that we can have too, in a very safe way. Imagine that kind of conversation and that kind of setting in your situations and relationships with non-believers. This transfers to that equally. Anyway, I need people to feel accepted enough to be real and authentic regarding knowledge you've had that may not align with what I just shared, because I want to grow and learn, right? Obviously, there are non-negotiable truths. And as a church of Jesus Christ, that we are striving to be biblical, there are explicit truths in the Bible that we will not waver on. We can discuss them, but I will always come back to Jesus is the Messiah. He died on the cross. He rose again. Those non-negotiable points. But like I said, if there are scholars that disagree on points of the Bible, guess what? We are going to too. Take the whole pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib that we've talked about. When's Jesus coming back? When is the rain? There's many, many more wiser, smarter, more intelligent people than me that disagree on that. So these are points of conversation. But differing thoughts on the non-negotiable or on the negotiables around that should not lead to division. Right? Shouldn't lead to division here or in our other personal relationships. Instead, an attitude of acceptance that allowed authenticity, what it needs to lead to is affirmation. Number 3. Not necessarily affirming their belief, but affirming them as a person who journeyed to that space to come to believe that. Right? Look for ways to affirm that person's knowledge and journey. Solomon wrote, "The tongue has the power of life and death." We can affirm and disagree. We can love and disagree. Or we can do the opposite and annihilate someone's character. Oh, that's so stupid. Oh, that's so dumb. Where did you learn such a thing? Never helpful, right? And I don't see anyone here doing this, but it's just, we need to be on the same page. If I'm not verbalizing the vision, then I don't know that everybody is on the same page, right? In fact, each person's thoughts, opinions, and knowledge often comes from a place of personal passion as well, right? If they're going to be brave enough to be authentic about what they're intellectually or emotionally are expressing, there's a passion behind it. There's a story behind it. Their unique design of personality and giftings and character and strengths and weaknesses are often aligned with what they're sharing. They can't easily be separated. So we need to treat the wholeness of a person in response, right? We need to affirm people's contribution to a conversation as valid and heartfelt and worth our time to hear. Affirm the process of discovery. It's that asking more questions around how you came to believe that. How did you find that out? Tell me more, right? That is affirmation. More often than not, in this particular setting, we will find that we may disagree on minor points, but we align on major points. And that's okay, because we still truly learn from that conversation. But if we're not open to hearing what others say that may not agree, then we're closing ourselves off to growth and transformation. And others who are afraid to say something are closing us off to opportunities for growth and transformation, right? I would be okay if all we did one day after opening discussion, somebody brings up something from last week and says, I was researching and I learned this week. And then we do the entire day talking about last week's message because it brings such rich, deeper conversation. Okay, that's affirmation. That's saying, I want to hear more. Let's talk about it, right? And when acceptance and authenticity and affirmation are in place, that's where we have created an environment for accountability. For number 4, you do not hold anybody else accountable until you've done the other 3 steps. And this is in our relationships outside of here too, right? Honestly, I think this should be the goal of every church. Yes, we want relationships. Yes, we want growth in Jesus, but what offers growth more than anything today is accountability. Tiffany, you don't get your truth. I'm sorry. I love you. I hear what you're saying, but your truth is off. I can't say that to Tiffany if I haven't built this space to do so, right? The ultimate goal is to be in relationships with others who pray for you and pray for protection over your relationship with God, even when you don't align on the minors, right? So what does accountability look like to you? Do you resist it? Do you welcome it? Are you brave enough to speak truth in love and grace and help others be accountable? Is it easy to hold others accountable? Is it easy to be held accountable? No. But this pathway allows for that to ultimately happen. To walk in accountability means that we will be challenged to walk through forgiveness, to operate in grace and truth, to find courage to be real. We are specifically designed as a church where this happens. We have done these conversations from the very beginning. This is not something new. This is who we are, because like I said, growth, being transformed doesn't happen unless we're having these conversations. Proverbs 27:17. Land on this verse today. As iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. Surrounding ourselves with only people who believe exactly the same as us makes us extremely dull Christ followers. In the Old Testament, when they're talking about this, iron sharpens iron, one iron blade was legitimately used to sharpen another blade until both became more effective tools or weapons. It was impossible for one tool to become sharper without the presence of the other. Left alone, both blades would be dull and useless. But when rubbed against each other, they became sharp and they became powerful. We need relationships where this is happening, where our goal isn't just food and fun and a few little facts about Jesus, but a willingness of being sharpened in our character, our knowledge, and our witness. Because you want to have better conversations about God outside in your world, the best place to practice that is in a safe place here. Hash it out here so that you can have and go in boldness and confidence and have those conversations with your family, with your coworkers, with your kids, with your parents, with the other people in your life. Do we get there overnight? No. We get there over time and practice. We need to have time having fun, and we will continue to do that. We need time where we're having just frivolous conversations and food and all of that, because that also leads to feeling accepted and getting to know each other, right? But there has to be an attitude beyond that, that we have to choose acceptance beyond that, right? So that people can be authentic, so that they will believe the affirmation that we're saying, right? Somebody you don't know comes up to you and is like, oh, and they're complimenting you, and they're like, yeah, okay, I have no value in what you're saying, right? But if somebody you have been there with, you've had the conversations, you've been doing life with, compliments you, affirms you, doesn't that feel better? Doesn't that feel more meaningful and valuable, right? As a church community, we open each week with a discussion and the previous message for several reasons. One, because we are using that truth to transform us during the week, and I want to hear how that has happened. What have you chewed on? But like I said earlier, you may be led to do more research and find out something that we didn't even talk about yet. Because I can only do so much in a 30-minute, 25, 30-minute message. There's way more to everything that I talk about and bring up. I hit pieces. And like I said, if we spend the next week or the next 2 weeks diving in deeper and hashing through more of something because it hit people, I'd rather do that than worry about getting through the 12 minor prophets in order and succinct and just making sure we get through the system, right? It matters that much to me. And we also know, and I will say this kind of to the other extreme, no one is going to be forced to talk. I'm never going to look at somebody and go, you have not shared in a while. What's going on? I'm not going to do that to people. I'm never going to do that to people. But I also want you to know that it is a safe place for you to begin to explore finding your voice in that, right? This is the culture, the environment that we are creating. And this, what I just shared, is meant to be a launching pad for a discussion now. It's not the end all. I'm not giving you the tools, now let's do this. I want to talk about this. I want to hear what you have to say. So rather than Tiffany coming back up and playing the tag team game, we're going to do worship at the end if we get to it. But I want to hear what your thoughts are. I want to hear what it's like for you to have to be held accountable. I want to hear what it's like for you to be in a space that is different than most churches where you come, you eat, you leave, to quote A Bug's Life from many Disney years ago, right? Because a lot of churches don't do this. And I don't want to just haphazardly do it. I want our intentions to be growth and listening and learning from each other, not just me. Because I know this much about this much. And everybody in here has another piece that they could be adding to, that adds to. So I don't want anyone to ever be afraid of having these conversations or speaking authentically regarding what is on your heart and mind, what you have learned. So let's dial this up for a sec. Do you hear my heart? We haven't done it wrong. But if one person is wondering what they can and can't share, then somebody else may be too. That's just the nature of humanity, right? It's never just one person in the room, right? And I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, but I want you to think inside your head. Have there been times you thought about saying something and you're like, I'm just not. I can see in many of your eyes. Yeah, absolutely. So just a reminder, this is the community that we're trying to build.